Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to Apollo Art Analysis. In this episode, we're going to take a look at a piece by the historic Japanese ukiyo-e artist Utagawa Hiroshige. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about the sacred nature of the Kitsune, and then also the kind of choir of Kitsunes who pay homage to the Ōji Inari Shrine. So let's jump right into it. So whenever you first see this piece, you're met with a really dark canvas here. And this, of course, is a very calm, a very tranquil night. And it introduces us, of course, with these kind of these little hints or flares of energy here. And of course, the lighter forms of each subject is the perfect accent to really contrast and elevate their emphasis on this darker background here. So that's a really nice introduction as well. And so we see a gathering of Kitsunes, really like an endless procession of those under the Enoki tree here at the Oji Inari Shrine in what is northern Tokyo now. And so, this very tranquil scene, it almost feels as if we're looking at them. They're kind of like in leisure, talking with one another, maybe conversing in whatever language they speak. And it's a very calm, a very tranquil introduction whenever you first see this work. And so the Oji Inari Shrine is actually the temple for the Inari cult. And the Inari cult is a Japanese kami of foxes, fertility, and agriculture. And so what we're looking at here is actually that people gather here and they look and see how many foxes gather, and based on the abundance of foxes, that is how abundant or how prosperous the coming growing season will be. So this is this kind of sense of prophecy here whenever we're taking a look at this work. And so the Oji Inari Shrine, like I said, it is in northern Tokyo, I believe a little bit northwestern Tokyo, but definitely northern Tokyo. And temples are scattered all throughout Japan, so it's very, very priceless to them. It's part of the Shinto religion, and it is just incredibly important, of course, the Japanese folklore and the mythology and everything in between. And so Japanese folklore, just like any folklore, it immortalizes the culture's tradition and their stories, whether it's oral storytelling or theater or drama or anything in between. And there's kind of that abstract sense there. And so what we're looking at here, of course, are Kitsunes. And Kitsunes are kind of like magical fox deities, and they have a bunch of different qualities to them. For one, they get wiser as they get older, so they do get more powerful as they get older. And then also, they can have anywhere from 1 to 9 tails. And each one of these, it does look like they have one, so we don't see any special strong kitsune here. But the kitsunes, they can have 1 to 9 tails, and 9 is the most divine or the most powerful or the most strength. And so, with that in mind, they've also been depicted striking their tails to trees to start fire. And then they're also depicted with what we call a kitsunbi. And a kitsunbi is kind of this little kind of fire orb, or the life force of the kitsune. And it moves with them to guide them through the night. And it is also representative, of course, of their divine power, their divine nature. And so, with that in mind, we've also seen them often referred to with horse bones in their mouth or human bones in their mouth. And from that, they can then cast that kitsunbi, or that little fire orb, and bring it into existence. And it's really interesting here. There is kind of like that sense of rebirth here. Of course, it kind of has the nature of the phoenix. If you were to take some bones in the mouth of the kitsune or the fox, and then that creates fire, that is kind of like the spirit of the phoenix from death to renewal and rebirth. So I think that's also important to know whenever taking a look at this work. And so, there's something really mystical about the fire within this work. Of course, fire is the same element which destroys as well as gives us light. So it is a very dual element, and it depends on how you use it, of course. And so just the fact that the kitsunes can summon fire and use them as their life force, it's an incredible testament to the divinity or the divine nature of these beings. And so I think that's also really important to note. And so, like I said, you see them just trailing off into the distance here. And this is incredibly important. Of course, I just mentioned that people gather here and look at the abundance of foxes to see how prosperous the coming growing season is. So if we were to take that and then combine that with just how many kitsunes are here, it's pretty priceless, because we're looking at a very bountiful, a very prosperous, and a very abundant coming season. And so this piece actually came from the ukiyo-e artist Utagawa Hiroshige, and he was directly tied with the ukiyo-e art movement, often referred to as one of the late great masters of that movement as well. And that movement is actually directly intertwined with woodblock printing in Japan. And people are launching fireworks outside of my house. So woodblock printing in Japan is incredibly important because it allowed them to mass produce these works and to spread them far and wide. And so the result of that was an incredible permeation of influence, especially under Impressionism, from Monet to Van Gogh to Cassatt and Gauguin. And so all of those were, definitely influenced by the woodblock printing or the ukiyo-e art movement. And so, like I said, with just how many kitsunes are in this piece, this is a very abundant scene. And this actually came from the 100 Famous Views of Edo, or Edo. And this came from that artist. He actually made his name incredibly with this, mainly because there was a very vivid colors in the scenes that he depicted, and also some really unique scenes that were also depicted. And this is actually one of the only pieces that depicts a supernatural or a fantasy or a scene of fiction. Most of them were actually real life kind of landscape scenes, but of course, or not landscape, kind of vertical landscape, if you will. And so the 100 Famous Views of Edo, it was a very, very popular piece, and it really, really cemented his rise. And so, with that in mind, this is a very, very mystical piece, very fantasy piece. Sorry, people are still launching fireworks. But regardless of that, a very, very nice piece, a very historic piece of that. I believe this came from around the 1800s, so that's also important to note as well. Of course, just in time to impact the artists of Impressionism like Van Gogh, Monet, Cassatt, Gauguin, etc. And so just an amazing piece coming from that artist, a very historic one, and I knew I had to study it, and I knew I had to share it with you all. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys learned something. We talked a little bit about the sacred nature of the Kitsune, and then also the Ōji Inari Shrine, or the Inari cult, as they pay homage to the Japanese kami of fertility, foxes, and agriculture. So like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed. Sorry about my pauses and stutters. There are people launching fireworks outside. It's a little distracting. Hope you guys enjoyed. My name is Apollo. This was Apollo Art Analysis, and I'll see you guys on the next episode. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you'd like to support our work directly, please check out our Apollo community tokens. Apollo Art Exchange is an ecosystem of art appreciation which elevates artists each and every day. Thanks for listening.